Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Body and Soul. Mind Your Body and Soul. This is the healthiest podcast you have ever heard in your entire life. I am Joseph Ward, and Mind Your Body and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. And remember, Mind Your Body and Soul is always available here on this Neighborhood Medical Center podcast, as well as Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many, many more places. So we try our best to make sure this podcast is on many different platforms. And make sure you visit our Neighborhood Medical Center website at www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. We are a federally qualified health center that provides affordable and quality care to our community members, whether you are underinsured, insured, don't have insurance at all, or you may not even have employment. Don't even worry about it. Neighborhood Medical Center can give you the care you need. All you have to do is visit one of our locations or even visit our website. Once again, www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. So now that I've got that out the way, I get the privilege to introduce our guest. So, superstars come in many different shapes, forms, and fashions, and superheroes don't always wear capes, right? So sometimes it's just about having a passion, following your passion, and in the pursuit of your passion, you grow as well. And you not only grow, but you gain skill sets, and you're able to affect others, uplift others, and empower others. And that's what is brought to the table with our guest today, Dr. Sheila D. Williams. She is an expert in her field with a MA in mental health counseling and a Ph.D. in leadership and education. She has an extensive background in education, counseling, training, and executive management. With over 25 years of experience in both mental health and educational fields, Dr. Williams has served as an educator at all levels. She's been a mental health therapist, an associate dean of academic affairs, a director of education, and a campus director. She is also an author, and we know we have to get into that. She's the author of the critically acclaimed memoir, My Mother's Keeper. So within that book, she chose to break her silence about her mother's mental health illness, her family's dysfunction, as well as many other challenges that she faced in her life. And we're going to learn about those challenges and how she was able to overcome those challenges, and also how the courage to overcome those challenges helped to shape her into the woman she is, but also fuel her to become the person she is and grow into the person she is. So without further ado, y'all put your hands together for Dr. Sheila Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thank you. And special thank you to Nicole Everett for connecting us and making sure that we were able to have this interview.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. So I know I gave a little brief information about yourself, but before we get into the interview, can you give the people some more information about yourself and what made you want to pursue the pursuits that you have pursued, and just take the journey that you're on?
Again, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's been a very rewarding career. And when I say career, it sounds like, just a professional thing that I've done. It's not just professional, definitely professional and education wise, but this is truly my purpose. And so I find great joy and pleasure in, what I do. It's very satisfying for me to be able to provide education, to link resources for individuals, and just to provide awareness about mental health and the fact that mental health is a part of health. Oftentimes when we think about health, most people don't even think that, your mental well-being is a part of your overall health, but it is. And so I think that if we change the narrative in the way that we think about health to include our mental well-being, I think that it would benefit all of us. It will definitely benefit us as individuals, but it will also benefit us as a community and a society as a whole. So I
Yes.
think that we should change the way in which we to think that we think about health, and to
Mhm.
make sure that it encompasses mental health as well. So the way that I got into all of this is it's no, God doesn't make any mistakes. Let me say
Right.
that. So initially, I tell the story all the time. I was very good at math, and I fell in love with math, and I wanted to be a math major. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be the first Black female astronaut.
Mhm.
Growing up in Florida, we saw the space shuttle. I visited Kennedy Space Center a million times,
Right.
and I wanted to be an astronaut, believe it or not. But that's not the plan that God had for me. The plan that He had for me is the plan and the path that I actually took, which was, once I opened up my first psychology book, I fell in love with the
Mhm.
field of psychology. And it was a lot of things that I read in that book that reminded me of myself. So a lot of stuff that I read in that first psychology book that reminded me of my mother.
Mhm.
And, at the time I was in high school, and my mother had not been diagnosed with a mental illness. She was not diagnosed until I actually finished college. But reading in that first psychology book, there was a lot of correlation and a lot of things that I could relate, to my mother and what was going on with her at the time. And so you mentioned that I wrote a book. The name of the book is My Mother's Keeper. I wrote that book a few years back, but it has resonated all across the world, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Small little book, small little memoir. I had no idea it was going to do what it did, but it did. And
Right.
so that's how I ended up in this field of mental health, picking up that first psychology book, changing my major from math to psychology, finishing the first degree, the bachelor's degree in psychology, and then going on to get my master's degree in mental health counseling.
Okay. So we have something in common because I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology from Florida A&M University,
Mhm.
and I don't know, because it's like you said, it's purpose driven,
Mhm.
because I never thought a day in my life about psychology or
Yeah.
anything about it, but just cracking open that. I remember the first class, the professor made us read The Miseducation of the Negro. And he
Mhm.
was he wasn't even a Black person. He was adamant
Mhm.
about us reading that book, but also in conjunction with the textbook that they gave us, because he wanted us to get the greater picture. But that just like opened my mind to the world of psychology. And I was like, oh man,
Mhm.
I like this stuff. So I get it. I get it.
Yes, yes, definitely. And so it was not by circumstance or anything. It was purposeful, and it was meant to be the way that it is. And I thank God that I picked up that first psych book, and I fell in love with the field, and here I am. I'm not even going to tell you how many years later, but here I am, 30 plus years later, and it has been just completely rewarding to be able to meet individuals, from working in the school system as a school counselor, as a special education teacher, as an assistant principal, and working as a therapist, as a mental health advocate now, just being, in contact with so many people from so many different walks of life and their paths with mental health, whether or not it's they themselves who are experiencing something, or it may be a loved one, it may be a parent, it may be a child, a significant other that is experiencing something. I think what we don't realize is that mental health affects all of us one way or another. Either
Right.
you yourself at some point are going to experience some mental health challenge at some point in your life, or your significant other, your spouse, your child, your children, your grandchildren, a parent, a loved one, someone in your immediate circle, or more than likely yourself, is going to experience a mental health challenge at some
Mhm.
point in your life. And that does not necessarily mean that you'll have that challenge for your entire life, but it does affect the majority of us, and
Right.
that's the thing that most people don't realize, is that it impacts the majority of us at some point in our lives. We will go through a mental health challenge.
Exactly. And so, speaking of being affected by mental health challenges, that goes into um, your relationship with your mother, but also the book My Mother's Keeper, because such a powerful title, very powerful title. And so, what made you share your story, and what was the moment that you realized you was ready to share your story with the world? And after sharing your story, how did it help you in healing?
Oh wow. So it it was a lifelong journey because I'm going to say the majority of, well, it was the majority of the entire childhood, my entire childhood, we did not know what was going on with my mom. We
Mhm.
knew that the way she explained it, her mental illness showed up as a physical ailment of some sort or another. And so when we took her to the primary care physician or the family physician, they would diagnose her with a medical condition and then treat her with medication like muscle relaxers and pain
Gotcha.
pills to
Gotcha.
address her physical hurts, her pains,
Right.
but never realizing that perhaps she had, or never saying that perhaps she had a mental illness.
Mhm.
And so it was not, and I would go back and forth with her even from, as a little girl, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, back and forth. Me and my dad constantly taking her to the doctor because she would spend many days in bed because she didn't feel good. Many days, she didn't work. My father was the only one in the home that would, that worked. She was, very loving and very, just very attentive when she could be. But because of an undiagnosed and untreated mental illness, there were days that she didn't get out of bed, she didn't feel good. And so there were many, many days that I had to be very independent. Most
Okay.
of the time, I had to be very independent. And thank God, He created me this way. Uh,
Mhm.
so that I could step up and do whatever I needed to do because there were days as a mother she was not able to do that. And so as a teenager, I just really, again, after reading that first psychology book, I then realized like, maybe it's not a medical condition, but I grew up in a black household, so you weren't gonna question.
Right.
You weren't gonna say too much, like no, maybe you don't, maybe you're really not just hurting, maybe there's something else
Right.
going on with you.
Right.
But so just being as supportive as I could, being it was a role reversal. So when I say my mother's keeper, I was a caregiver at a very early age, making sure that she was okay, rushing home from school. A lot of times my friends would ask, like, ain't you gonna come out and play with us? And I'm like, no, well, I wouldn't even explain it. It was just a norm for me to just go in the house and make sure she was all right, then to make sure that I, did my laundry, or, of course I did my homework. I was in love with education, so I always did my homework.
Right.
But just to make sure that she was okay. And then she needed me to clean the house, I would clean the house. And, sometimes I would prepare her food and bring it to her in bed. And, just again, the role reversal at a very early age. And so
Right.
it was my norm. So I didn't realize that other kids weren't necessarily doing this.
Right.
I knew that probably most of them weren't doing it because a lot of them was outside playing. And
Right.
so when I did get a chance to go outside and play it, I played hard. And so then, as a teenager, and then of course once I got to college and in my degree and in my field, I'm like, yeah, every chance I get, and I'm going to the doctor, I'm asking questions with her because she would not, she was very quiet, a bit shy,
Mhm.
so she wouldn't always speak up and ask certain questions, and I don't think she really knew the right questions to ask because we didn't know anybody that,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 70s, I'm talking about the 80s. We didn't really
And
know
nobody's talking about
anybody
mental
that,
health.
ain't nobody talking about that, and
Right.
so I'm Gen X, so we didn't have a whole lot of conversations about mental illness or anybody with depression or anything like that. So, I was in my early to mid 20s, after I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree and then had started my master's degree. That's when I really knew, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to like really speak up for her because she doesn't
Mhm.
really know the exact questions to ask. And so when we would go to the doctor and they would ask how she was feeling, she would say, oh, I hurt, or I have this pain, I have that pain. And I said, yes. I remember just like yesterday, I spoke up in her doctor's appointment. I said, yes, but the way that looks is, she's not cooking. I'm cooking, or my father is cooking. She's not getting out of bed. She's not coming out of the house. The blinds are closed. The TV is off. She doesn't have, very many friends. She doesn't have any social outings other than, the kids at home. Well, I was the only one still at home. And after I came back from college, but she didn't have any extracurricular activities or anything like that. And so as I'm explaining, and they're, analyzing the medical physicians are analyzing her physical ailments coupled with her emotional state, that's when he finally said, no, I think I need to refer you to a psychiatrist. And at that point is when she was referred. I took her straight to the psychiatrist, and they diagnosed her with clinical depression. And so it gave us a lot of answers to the questions that had not been answered for years. And I presume my mother was depressed long before I was ever born. But it's just like with any illness that goes on and it's not treated, it's undetected, it just continues to get worse. And so at some point it starts to spiral, and she goes in and out of very deep depression state. And then there are many days that she was happy, and she was dancing around the house and singing and everything.
Right.
But I'm going to say later on, the majority of the time she was not like that. And so once we did get an explanation of what was going on with her, she got the medication, she got the treatment that she needed. I continued to have that role reversal, where I was still caring for her, not just necessarily for her depression. She was eventually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so, so coupled with the depression that she had, she later developed multiple sclerosis where she was bedridden, and I continued to care for her until she passed away.
And so looking back, do you think the MS may have contributed to some of the physical ailments that she may have along with the mental health?
I think definitely so. I don't think as a child, definitely she had, I don't think she had multiple sclerosis at that point when she was, very young. But she got, definitely as, I mid-20s, early 30s or so, when she started to have more physical ailments. Yes, definitely the multiple sclerosis along with the depression is kind of like a catch-22. Now you have an illness that there is no cure for, and you already have depression. It contributed to the fact that she was already clinically depressed. Yes, most certainly.
Gotcha. Okay. And what year did you publish your book?
2014. So so it was around 2010 or so that now my mother had been bedridden for 8 years. So from, I'm gonna say 2004 or 5 or so, she really started to have more complications with the multiple sclerosis. And definitely by 2008, 9, 10, the doctors were saying that, she wasn't going to get any better. And so around 2010, it just weighed very heavily on me that my mother often felt like she didn't fit in, and that she was very embarrassed of her diagnosis, which we never told anybody.
Right.
I was sworn to secrecy to never tell anybody. And so quite honestly, I never told my siblings because I went to the doctor with her that day. And and so once we got that diagnosis, we came home and we told my father. So it was, we were sworn to secrecy, and it was not my position to tell, although I wanted to tell. Being a clinician and being in the mental health field, I would never break that confidentiality. And so it's not my position to tell anybody's business. And so even though that put me in a very uncomfortable place, I understood it, and I respected the fact that she didn't want anybody to know. And so there is this huge stigma that's associated with any type of mental illness. And so she didn't want to be an outcast. She didn't want anybody to think of her as being crazy because she had clinical depression. And then definitely when she became disabled physically with the multiple sclerosis, and now she's in a wheelchair, and, it just coupled with, and it just really compounded it, where she did not want anyone to know, okay, on top of the fact that she has this physical debilitating disease, disorder. She does not want anybody to know that she has a mental health condition. So around 2010, I started to have this conversation with her. I've always been pretty transparent about my life. I'm like, hey, what you see is what you get. You like it or you love it.
Right.
I could not share this very intimate, very integral part of my life, my mother's story, because it wasn't my story to tell.
Right.
I
Right.
felt very strongly that someone would benefit from hearing her story. And then essentially part of her story is part of my story,
Yeah.
my life story. And so in this memoir, I wanted to reflect upon the fact that a lot of people saw me as Dr. Williams. This is girl, she got it all together. She's an AKA, whatever.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, I got all these accolades and stuff, but I am human. My family is human.
Right.
My mother is human. As a Black woman, I am human, and I deal with all of these things. I have these positions, I have these accolades, I have all of these accomplishments, but it's I find that when we share our experiences, it brings forth a humanistic
Yes.
outlook on who we are. And then we find that we're more alike than we are different. And
Right.
God laid it upon my heart to have this conversation with my mother, that I felt that someone somewhere would benefit from hearing about her, from hearing her story. And then also someone somewhere would perhaps benefit from hearing my story. I wanted to be able
Exactly.
to encourage other people, not necessarily that you need to write a book and tell the world your business, but I wanted to encourage people to get help. I wanted to encourage
Right.
people to know that they are not alone in their mental health challenges. I wanted people who are in families or in relationships that may be a bit dysfunctional, or somebody's holding a secret, or you're dealing with any type of challenge, that you're going to get through it. It may not seem
Right.
like it right now, but you can and you will get through it. And so I had that conversation with my mother in 2010, around 2010, 2011, not realizing that she would be gone in 2012. And so I needed to have the conversation with her, that I wanted to tell her story, and that God had laid it on my heart. So somewhere around, I don't know, somewhere between 2011 and 2012, I was in the room with her, and she, of course, she's laying in the bed, and she was like, you said you wanted to write that story and something about a book or something. And I said, yes, ma'am. And so she said to me, you can write that story when I'm gone. And so I said, okay,
Right.
and you never know when that's going to be. And so literally like a year later, she passed away. But it took me another 2 years to write the book. And so I knew breaking the silence would be controversial.
Right.
I knew that, wait a minute, because I'm writing a very transparent book, and I'm talking about some things that have never been spoken of. And it was challenging for me, but it was very therapeutic for me as well. And so I know that God has a purpose for everything. And so in writing that book, although it was challenging, it was very difficult. I cried, putting pen to paper
Yeah.
in several of these chapters. And I actually took part of the book from my own, my own diary. And so from notes from my diary, and actually recalling many of the things that my mother said to me in our experiences, is when is what is in the book. And so it is very transparent. It
Right.
is definitely from the heart, but it was very therapeutic for me. And in writing the book, it has mended many of the relationships that, as I stated in the book, some of the relationships were dysfunctional, and some things had not been shared or talked about or addressed. And so, sometimes you got to rip the Band-Aid off for the wound to breathe and to heal. And so that's exactly what I did. Instead of putting it, keeping this Band-Aid on and pretending like everything is okay, I ripped it off. I ripped
Mhm.
it off, like, oh Lord, what's gonna happen here? I don't know. I
Right.
put it all in your hands, And
Right.
so I ripped it off, and I said, either it's gonna, my arm gonna fall off, or or this wound is gonna heal. And
Right.
that's exactly what happened. And so I'm thankful to God that I followed his lead. I'm thankful to God that He laid it on my heart to have that conversation with my mother. I'm thankful to God that she said, okay, write the book after I'm gone. I'm thankful that the book grew legs of its own, because I didn't really do any marketing or whatever. I just wrote the book. I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
But it grew legs of its own, and I felt that it has done, it continues to do what it's supposed to do. And so I continue to serve as I was an advocate long before I wrote this book, but I continue to serve as an advocate. I continue to
Right.
just express the importance of us getting out and getting the help that we need, and educating not only ourselves but educating our community, and just helping someone who may not know what to do in times of need.
So that's incredible. That's incredible. So, um, where can people buy the book?
I always tell people to go to Amazon.com. That's probably the fastest way for you to get
Okay.
it. But you can get it from Barnes and Noble. Even Walmart.com has it.
Okay.
Anywhere that books are sold, you can find the book. My Mother's Keeper. You can type that in. I think there's another book out there, a couple of books since I wrote it with the same title. But
Mhm.
definitely look for my book with my name, and you'll be able to find it pretty much anywhere that books are sold.
That's amazing. So, um, being a mental health expert, working in the education system, because you say you've taught all grades.
Yes.
Your experience growing up with your mother, what you've learned as a professional, and then you get to work in the school system. You get to see our children. How did all of your experiences shape how you helped the children who, or even the families who children were dealing with mental health issues, who may not even knew that their children were dealing with mental health issues, or who even knew or didn't know where to start? How did that affect your relationship or how you related with the families?
Oh yeah, most certainly. So what happens is, there's this huge responsibility as an educator, as a teacher, working with students, K through 12. And so a lot of times, again, we don't know what's happening in the house, next door.
Right, right.
We don't know the house across the street. We have no idea. No, nobody knew what I was dealing with. I mean, we look like, we have two-parent household.
Hmm.
Mom is a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, it was great. Thank God. We had many positives. But the challenge is nobody saw that, just like with any
Right,
other household. Nobody puts that out there for the world to see. Well, look, no, nobody puts that out there. So not that you have to, but what I'm saying is, as an educator, as a teacher, your responsibility, your contract says you have to teach. You have to educate these students. They have to meet these standards. They have to pass, whatever test, and so your job and your evaluation is based upon the performance of your children, how they do. When I say your children, your students, how they do
right,
academically. But your performance is not based upon you help the student with their emotional and psychological. That's not your role.
right,
But you cannot expect a child to fully learn when they're dealing with emotional, or any type of other situation at home. And
hmm,
so I believe in a holistic approach. When and that's one reason why I ended up getting my doctorate degree in education. I wanted to be able to work from an administrative level, to be able to work on policies and procedures that are going to address the whole child. And so, as a teacher, yes, your responsibility is to ensure that the academic standards are met,
hmm,
but it's very challenging to be able to do that when the child is emotionally dealing with something,
right.
or the child is dealing with something at home, and they can't fully focus in class, even if their little stomachs are hungry. They come to
Exactly.
school hungry, and they haven't eaten. So we have to be able to look at the whole child, is the way that I see it. And so, as an educator, as a teacher, when I was teaching, K through 12, I really made sure that I built somewhat of a professional rapport with my students. I'm not your friend, but I am your teacher and I care about you. Not just I need you to pass this test. Yes, I do. I
Mhm.
need you, I need you to sit down and pay attention, put your cell phone away. But I want to be able to build a rapport with you so you know that it is a safe space to talk to me if there are other things that are bothering you. There are other things that may be hindering you from learning. I want you to be able to tell me that you're hungry. I'm hungry, Dr. Williams. I haven't eaten since Friday when we left school, and today is not Monday. I want you to be able to tell me that you want me to do my homework, but it's too loud at home and I can't do it. Okay, because I can't focus, I can't concentrate. Okay, so you don't have to tell me everything that's going on in your home, but maybe I can call your mom and see if you can come to school, a little bit earlier in the morning, and I'll make that sacrifice to be here a little bit early. We'll make sure you come to my class even before homeroom starts. And you get your work done before school even starts. Or maybe you can stay after school a couple of days for you to work quietly in my classroom. These are things that I've done as a
Right.
teacher. You can work quietly in my classroom. Would that help? And so, how would your mother feel if I called you? Because the last thing I want to do is put the child in a situation where it might be a problem. And so, just stuff like that. Just realizing that we're dealing with the the whole child,
Right.
and so,
Right.
um, and so if and or I was a teacher and I wasn't the school counselor, the guidance counselor, if there were concerns or issues that I saw that I felt needed to be addressed by the school counselor, then I would call that to the counselor's attention.
Okay.
But we are whole people. Sometimes we show up to work, we have tasks, we have responsibilities that we have to carry out as employees, but we are whole people. And so when
Mhm.
you see somebody in the grocery store, you see somebody at church, or you see a neighbor outside watering the lawn, they're more than just your neighbor. They're more than just your church member. They're more than just your co-worker. These are people who are dealing with true life things that are happening. And so I think we need to give each other a little bit more grace and empathy when we don't may not even know what's going on, because
Right.
everybody is dealing with something. Everybody.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Everybody is, and I do see our community moving more toward more safe spaces, more open spaces to be able to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Um, when we were growing up, I know it was if you were dealing with mental health and you were crazy, so they just put
Yeah.
everybody under the umbrella of crazy and
Right.
not having a full understanding of the diversity and the complexity of mental health issues that can come with the person. So with that being said, what is one of or some of the biggest myths surrounding mental health that you think need to be just dismantled, that you may hear on a regular basis, that you may see some of the myths that need to be dismantled or better understood?
I think that there's a few. And so one of the biggest ones I often get as a therapist is there's this I don't want to see a therapist because, one, I'm not taking medication.
Mhm.
So there's this myth that you have to be on medication
Right.
if you are seeing a therapist, and that is such a myth. Or if you are diagnosed with anything, that you have to be on medication, and that is such a huge myth that needs to be dispelled. The majority of people who have, therapists or seeking some mental health counseling, they're not on medication.
Mhm.
And so even if medication is recommended to you, it's never forced upon you. Nobody's going to force you to take anything that you don't want to take. Now, I highly do agree. I strongly agree that there are times when medication would be beneficial, depending on your diagnosis and depending on
Mhm.
the symptoms that you have. I strongly agree that medication is sometimes needed.
Right.
But even with that, I mean, it's up to you whether or not you take medication or not. That's up to you. So it could be recommended, but it's not something somebody's going to force upon you.
Right.
And so that's that's probably the number one thing that I see. And so a lot of people won't even go to therapy because they're scared that someone's going to make them take medication. That's something that I see often. Another myth is that someone's going to find out. Like there's going to be, if you see a therapist or you seek professional mental health services of any type, your employer or someone's going to find out, and it's going to negatively impact your job, or maybe your health insurance some kind of way, and that's so not the case. And so we are all bound by confidentiality. And so if anyone were to break that confidentiality, that would be a huge problem. It'd be a huge lawsuit, a huge liability upon whoever did that. And so those are probably the two that come to mind first and foremost. Perhaps there is a third one where I often find this often in the Black community, that we feel like it has to be everything has to be completely falling apart, and you have to be like not able to function and get out of bed, and you can't take care of your kids. Yeah, definitely. If you got all that going on, you do need to see somebody. But outside of that, like it could be you went through a bankruptcy and it's really affecting you. It's challenging for you emotionally to think that you've gotten to this place, or you had a repo on a car, or you had a home that you foreclosed on. Even a financial situation can warrant you to talk to someone. Maybe you need to just talk to someone. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed. That just means you're dealing with a life challenge where it may benefit you to actually speak to someone to help you process through that. You have another situation is where we lose loved ones that are very close to us. A parent, a child, a significant other has passed away, grandparent, aunt, uncle, or a friend that was really you were really close to. That loss can really impact us emotionally. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed clinically, or that you have any other kind of mental health disorder, but these life circumstances could warrant us to need to talk to someone, so that we process through those emotions, so that we process through the stages of grief and loss appropriately, so that you're not dealing with that alone. And so I find that definitely in the African American community, in the Black community, we sometimes feel like, boy, we got to be like down all the way out, and we're not going to talk to anybody until it gets that bad. No, you don't have to wait. The goal is that it doesn't get that bad. Talk to somebody before it gets there.
Yes. No, I'm so glad that you are talking preventative mental health counseling. We don't you were one of the first person I've heard talk about preventative mental health counseling, because as you say, we always think about it when either something's wrong significantly, or like really wrong, like things are going to handle. But just like if I go to my doctor for my monthly checkups and my yearly checkups, my twice a year checkup, go to the doctor, I can go to my counselor, my therapist for that checkup for preventative. Yes, I get it.
Yes. And it's a wellness check. So just as you stated, I'm so glad you said that. So you just go and you sit down and you talk to them about what's happening with you, your supports, your social interactions, your how you're functioning from day to day. If you experienced a loss, if you went through a divorce, if you had a bad breakup, maybe you weren't even married, but you had a bad breakup. Like these life be lifing. So all the time. It does not stop. I had this conversation with someone the other day, and they're a little bit younger than me, about 25 years younger than me. And I said, the challenges that you're going through right now are different than the challenges you'll go through in 25 years. But you best believe you will still go through challenges 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. And
Right.
so that is the nature of life. So at where I am, at the stage where I am in my life, my challenges look a little bit different than they did when I was 20, 25 years old. But
Right.
yet and still, they are still challenges. And so that's not to negate one or the other. They're all relative challenges. And so at any point in our lives, you know, life is life. And at any point in our lives, we need to know and be aware of the resources that are available to us.
Yes.
Whether or not we have insurance, just like when you were talking about earlier, a lot of times people feel like, you know, it's so expensive to seek therapy. There are a lot of therapists and agencies that provide pro bono services completely free of charge. If you have medical insurance, there are most medical insurance carriers provide you with EAP services where you can get some mental health counseling or so many sessions with, you know, for free or at a sliding scale. And so there are community mental health agencies in a lot of communities. So, you know, even some hospitals provide mental health services. So it's just a vast array of resources out there. It's just a matter of you tapping into them and doing yourself the service that you deserve. Just like you said, when you go and get a mental health checkup, I mean, a medical checkup, you would do the same for
Yep.
your mental health.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
So you, it's like we on telepathy, because like you were right there with my next question, because you hit on being able to navigate the system. So that was my next question is, because I know I work in healthcare as well. So
Mhm.
here at Neighborhood Medical Center, we developed a platform called Making the Most of Your Healthcare Visit, because we noticed that patients who are going to the doctor, but we've had people go to the doctor and don't even know the doctor's name
Oh, wow.
to visit. So what tips or strategies would you give our listeners to best navigate finding the correct mental health professional, and also navigating the sessions to get the most out of the sessions?
Mhm. I'm going to say that, you know, you have to take ownership of your well-being. So, you know, from a physical standpoint, you know, finding the best primary family care physician for you. You know, you know, as a woman, I'm finding the best OBGYN. You know, I don't want to go through that with somebody I'm not comfortable with. So you know, you're whatever it is. If you have a cardiologist or you have a gastroenterologist or whatever it is, even when you see an ophthalmologist or an optometrist, you know, I'm not going to pay you my money if I don't feel comfortable with you.
Right.
And so you want to do your research. I think that the biggest thing that I find sometimes, as you stated, there's no reason why we don't know the person's name. I want to know. That's just me. I want to know, how long have you been doing this? You know, you
Mhm.
know, what does it say out here about your reviews? I want to see what other people say about your bedside manners. You know, how are
Right.
you when you deal with your patients? You know, so we all have computers. We all have the access to the internet because we all have cell phones. So, you know, we can type in a person's name, type in the doctor's name, you
Mhm.
know, do a Google search to see what people are saying about this doctor. You know, have they had any medical malpractice? You know, what do the patients say? Or is this patient is this therapist kind? Do they listen to you? Do they rush you through the sessions? You know, maybe they've only been doing this a year or two. That's not to say anything negative, but maybe you're looking for somebody that has a little bit more experience, 20, 25, 30 years. Maybe you're
Right.
looking for a male therapist. Maybe you're looking for a female therapist. Maybe you're looking for a therapist of a certain ethnic background or a certain race. You want to make sure that you find the individual that you feel most comfortable with. And so from there, ask questions. And so you when you go, you know, to the doctor, hopefully when you're, going to the doctor, you're asking questions, you're advocating for yourself. You got an ache, you have a pain, you got an itch, you got whatever going on. You're going to ask the questions, where did this possibly come from? How do we get rid of it? How do we address it? Do I need surgery? Do I need to change my eating habits? Do I need to change what I do from day to day? You're asking these questions when you go to a medical doctor. So when you are seeking out a therapist and you're in that session, in the first session, ask them questions. How many female clients do you have? Do you have more male clients than you do female clients? How long have you been doing this? What are the most of your clients, what are some of the diagnoses that they have? That's not breaking any confidentiality. They're not giving you the names of their clients or anything. And so, ask them questions so that you can make sure it's a good fit for you. Right. And then, if you are diagnosed with anything, ask questions about that. Will I have this forever? Like, from day to day, what are some of the things that I can do to ensure that this didn't get out of hand? Talk to me about strategies that I can use to help me function better from day to day. Is it required that I take medication? You've recommended medication to me. How is this going to benefit me if I take the medication?
Right.
How is it, what are the side effects of this medication? So you have to be your biggest advocate. And so if you don't feel comfortable asking those questions, then maybe it's not the right person for you. Find somebody that you do feel that you would be comfortable asking those questions with, or at least have somebody drive with you or go with you to they might not be able to go back in the session with you, but they can accompany you to the actual session, sit in the lobby or sit in a car and wait for you until you come out. And so you have a support system with you if you feel comfortable enough to let someone know that you are, in therapy. I'm different. I'm just like, hey, look, we all go through something. It's probably because I've been in this field for so long. Yeah. I don't have a problem asking somebody to come with me.
Right.
Listen, if I need the support, I'm going to ask. And so hopefully you have a family member, a loved one, a neighbor, somebody from church that can accompany you if you need that support. And don't be afraid to ask, because there are a lot of people that just really want to help. But if you don't ask, they don't want to force themselves on you. They don't force that relationship. But yeah, hopefully you do have someone that, cares about you and loves you and that you feel comfortable bringing with you if you feel that you need that support.
So you've had an incredible journey, coming from a childhood where you learned a lot about yourself and your mother and mental health. She being diagnosed with clinical depression. You wrote a book. You aced school. You became a John Maxwell speaker. You're a therapist. You're an educator. You're an achiever. What would you say out of everything that you've accomplished, and every step, every up, every down, every twist, every turn, what do you say was the greatest lesson that you've learned about yourself that has helped you to be such an advocate for others?
Wow, such a great question. Thank you. I'm going to say the peace that you find from being honest and transparent with yourself first. That is the biggest lesson that I have learned. And I learned that lesson by observing my mother and her holding in so much and being so secretive and so quiet and feeling that she was going to be judged. There is a huge liberation in just being yourself, authentically, transparently as possible. And so those that know me know, like, what you see is what you get. And, I'm never going to intentionally offend or hurt anyone. but I am just transparently me,
Yeah.
unapologetically. And
Yes.
so if that means I am crying today, if that means tomorrow I'm skipping on my on the front lawn of my house, if that means, I'm in ripped up jeans one day or the next day I'm in Louis Vuitton, it doesn't matter. And I will go from one extreme to the other depending on the mood. And
Mhm.
so it just really is being authentically true to who I am and embracing the woman that God has made me to be. And so to get to that point, I had to realize that, I need supports.
Mhm.
I need therapy when I need therapy. I need prayer. I need God first in my life. I need to love on the people that love me unconditionally. And I need to make sure that I put my mental health right at the top, where I have my spiritual, my physical health, right there aligned together. I don't think that we should have one without the other. I think they're all intertwined, and they're all equally important.
Right.
It does me no good to, I like to use word holy roller. It does me no good to be a holy roller if I am not taking care of my mental health. I don't think that we can actually be in tune with God's purpose for our lives
Mhm.
if we're not living and abiding in the body in this vessel and taking care of the body in the vessel, which includes our mental health. He meant for us to do that. And so he or she meant for us to do that. And so depending on your beliefs, these are my beliefs. I believe that in order for us to do that, we have to holistically care for ourselves. And to be able to do that, we have to take care of our mental health, our physical health, our financial health, and in every other part of our lives. And so living transparently is liberation. It's a freedom that brings peace that surpasses everything else. And I'm so
Yes.
happy
Yeah.
that I'm here at this point in my life.
Nah, we are too. And because the world is being able to benefit from your growth and your happiness and your development into the woman that you are today. And
Mhm.
but that's what it's about, though. Um,
Mhm.
Striving to be your greatest self, and if you're on your purpose, when
Yes.
in that striving to be your greatest self, you're going to impact and help so many other people. It's not going to even be funny,
Yeah.
but it's going to be rewarding.
Yeah. That is so true, because it brings me so much pleasure. It makes me happy. You'll often see on my social media, I'll say it's a blessing to be a blessing. And
Hmm.
so the way that I receive my blessings is just by helping other people. I
Yes.
am so rewarded to just be able to share, to be able to direct and connect people to resources. It's encouraging for me to give an encouraging word to someone else. It's encouraging to me to be able to connect someone who's on the verge of maybe doing something that they will regret later. Connect them with some resources that's going to be able to help direct them on the right path. Someone that has gone through a traumatic experience, getting them some therapy, some counseling. It's just really rewarding. It's a blessing. It really is. And I started out saying when we started, I said that it is my indeed God's purpose for my life.
Mhm.
And it's not just a passion. It's not just a career. It's definitely my purpose, God's purpose
Yes.
for my life.
Yes. Yes. I believe those of us who are on our purpose, we're connecting and meeting for a reason.
Yes.
Because like I say, Nicole she texted me and said, "Hey, would you like to interview Dr. Sheila?" I didn't even really think twice about it because I was watching the interview, but I wasn't thinking twice about it. I was like, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even bother to to ask for any information. I'm just like, yeah, but it was just like if she would recommend you to me, that's because
Right.
you already come with substance. And so it
Yeah.
was
Thank you. I appreciate
no problem, no problem. So as we
it.
wrap this up, could you
Mhm.
tell the people where they can get your book from again, but also
Mhm.
let's say Oprah, Jennifer Hudson, whoever big interviewers that just so happen to come across this and they want to book you for their show, how can people get in contact with you?
call me. Yeah, I am definitely available on all social media. The fastest way to connect with everything that you just stated is to just go to my website, which is drsheila.d.williams.com. And so if you go to drsheila.d.williams.com, you'll see links to the book. You'll see my social media links. But on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, it's all my full name. It's Dr. Sheila D. Williams. And so there's information to connect you with the book on my website. Social media links to are on my website, and as well my YouTube channel. There's links on theirs on my website as well. But if you go directly to Amazon, you can find the book on there. But if Jennifer Hudson or any other nationally syndicated TV show or radio show would like to connect with me, you can find me pretty much anywhere. You type my full name in Google, and everything will pop up.
See, people like to talk bad about the state of Florida, but they don't realize how many wonderful and pioneering and empowering that we have here in the state of Florida.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Florida is where it's at. I keep trying to tell
people. Yes, ma'am. See, told you all once again, when we bring you interviews, we bring you interviews of substance. And remember, this Neighborhood Medical Center YouTube channel is a digital or video resource hub for resources, not just in Tallahassee, but across the state and across the country, of people who dedicate their lives and themselves to making our community better. And Dr. Sheila Williams fits the bill. So thank you once again for being a guest on Mind, Your Body, and Soul. And we're gonna stay in touch. We're definitely
gonna stay in touch. We have to definitely. Let's do some things.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Let's do it. Yes, ma'am. And you all of our viewers, remember that this is Mind, Your Body, and Soul, the healthiest podcast that you've ever heard in your entire life. And we focus on making sure that our viewers get educated, uplifted, empowered, and mobilized to become the greatest versions of themselves with the information that we have here. And remember, this is the Neighborhood Medical Center YouTube channel. Like this video, comment, subscribe, share. Go to neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org for more information about the overall organization. Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more, where you can find the audio of this. And remember, the video is on YouTube. And we'll see y'all next time. I love you all. And we're going to do it again. See you later.